now bring in Brandon Tatum to discuss George Floyd's family's efforts on police reform. Brandon is a former police officer and co-founder of Blexit and the founder and CEO of OfficerTatum.com. Brandon, great to have you back with us.
Thanks for having me.
You know, what's interesting in this conversation, we've heard a lot about Senator Tim Scott this week. We've heard less about his real earnest effort to work with Democrats on a legitimate police reform bill, something that everyone can get on board with. But, you know, when George Floyd's family comes to Washington, you see Ben Crump out there in front of the Capitol or wherever he was, I think at the White House. Does that help this conversation? Does it actually advance this forward?
No, it does not. I mean, Benjamin Crump is the biggest pimp in American history, pimping out these dead black people to make money. That joke is there every time you see a payout. He's going to show up and be there. I don't know. You know, I feel bad for George Floyd's family. I feel bad for any family that has lost a loved one to police involvement or even black on black involvement. No matter what it is, you lose somebody you love. It's a heart-wrenching thing. It hurts. However, what are they talking about? What police reform is going to change what George Floyd went through? They don't teach in the academy anywhere in the country to kneel on a person for 9 minutes and not render aid when they're screaming for help and people are recording you. That's not trained. You have never seen that happen in the history of Minneapolis Police Department. You hardly have ever seen that across the country. And if it does happen, people go to jail over that. Right. People get fired. What meaningful legislation are they talking about that's going to stop a cop from shooting somebody in the back? They don't teach those things. These are rogue officers doing whatever they want to do, and they get punished for it. We can't stop it. We can attempt to mitigate it, but it's not going to come through a form of defunding the police and all of the other foolishness that, unfortunately, the parents are pushing when they go to meet with Congress.
Right. If this effort falls short or if it ends, you know, Ben Crump doesn't have a career really anymore. I don't know what else he does besides this stuff, to your point here. And, you know, the face mask with the 845 on it. And to your point, the justice system worked here. Derek Chauvin's going to jail as a murderer for a very long time. And so this issue is being addressed. And, you know, I wanted to look at this because you see some of the same talking points, the same kind of rhetoric coming from North Carolina right now from the family of Andrew Brown. And we don't know what happened there. We have not actually seen the body cam footage. The family has seen 20 seconds of that. We saw the court proceeding earlier this week, but you hear terms like execution and murder. And again, we do not have the investigation complete yet. There's a moral hazard to this. When you have the city of Minneapolis, Brandon, paying $27 million to George Floyd's family, that's clearly what the court thought this was worth. But, you know, again, it does seem like sometimes there's a script here for a predetermined outcome, and that outcome is a check from the municipality.
Right. There's two things here. There's a brainwashed populace where you have individuals who think everything that police officers do is wrong, and they think that, you know, their family can do no wrong. They know they're out there thugging and selling drugs and have warrant for their arrest. They're afraid of their own family members. But when they get killed by a police officer, all of a sudden, all of that changed, and they were Jesus Christ incarnate. Now, the other problem is that this is an insurance policy for deadbeat daddies and people out here thugging that don't have a life, that cannot provide for their family. If they died at the hands of another black man, their family will get no money. However, Crump and others are pushing these families into a threshold of making a lot of money. Why wouldn't you say that your son was a great person, although the SWAT team had to come to his house and a tactical team had to try to arrest him for selling massive amounts of drugs? You don't have a SWAT team if you got a little weed on you or you have a little crack. You are doing big time drug dealing, killing and harming other people for what you're doing.
That's a great point. A lot of things that's lost in this conversation is how overtaxed police officers are nowadays, and how you don't have the time to send the entire SWAT team to arrest somebody for a little bag of weed. That's just not what police are interested in doing any day anymore. And also, when it comes to accountability, that word that we've heard so much about from guys like Kobe Bryant, I want to talk about the Ma'Khia Bryant situation now, because her family says they have plans to sue after her 16-year-old daughter, the mother here, after her 16-year-old daughter was fatally shot by police. Ma'Khia Bryant, of course, was in foster care, and now her cousin is blaming the foster care system for failing the teen. But she's already in foster care, Brandon. We got to talk about who already failed Ma'Khia Bryant first, and that's her parents.
Of course. You know, the elephant in the room. Mama, why your baby don't live with you? Why is she at a foster home down the street? Now, I know, and I've heard rumors that this is a scheme that people do. I can't verify that this is what she did, but that other families will keep your children to get extra money, and then y'all playing the whole game. There's no reason that your kid living down the street from you and in a foster home. You got a house, and then what are you doing with your child? Instead of talking about mental health, instead of talking about the things that you may could be improving on children that go into the system, you want to blame the police. Your daughter is out here trying to butcher people. She's only 16. If your daughter is that deranged, or she have lost her mind to that point, or she's going through that much stress and turmoil in her 16 years, and she's stabbing people that are living with her, I mean, we have a huge problem. Nobody's talking about the gentleman that kicked the other girl in the head.
Right.
We have a huge issue going on here, and everybody want to make their money and their insurance policy from the police department.
And Brandon, I know
I'm okay with criticizing police, but you gotta address what this young lady was doing.
Well, that's the ironic thing too about LeBron James tweeting out accountability. It takes accountability. Community accountability starts with the individual. Hold your neighbor accountable as well. They hold their neighbor accountable. And as soon as you have a community that's holding everyone accountable, and the village that it takes to raise a child is there. And you know this as well as anybody, Brandon, when you've seen these teenagers, black women, or black girls and black boys and white boys, it doesn't matter. If they are not with their parents, they are angry about that. That is a human thing. And that's where the anger comes from, and a lot of this anxiety comes from.
Well, look at this. I mean, where's her daddy at? That's the biggest thing. I don't care nothing about what nobody else doing. Where your daddy at?
Right.
I see her mom talking. I see her mom at the press conferences. I want to see your dad. Same thing with the young kid that lost his life at the traffic stop where the cop pulled a gun instead of the taser. Dante Wright.
Dante Wright, yep.
I see his mama talking on the camera. Why your daddy ain't talking? Why your daddy not standing in the gap? These boys don't have strong men. If anything ever happened to me, you bet your bottom dollar my father will be the one talking up for me. My mama loved me, but my dad is going to stand up for me because my dad was there. My dad taught me how to be a man. My dad was an example of leadership, of handling adversity. I mean, these kids don't have that.
Right.
Let's have that conversation. Let's do dad reform instead of talking about what the police can do differently.
I like that, dad reform. Of course, nowadays, some people call that toxic masculinity. That's what they want to call it. But we know better, don't we, Brandon?
100%. Toxic masculinity in my rear end. It's time for people to be a man.
That's right.
Stand up and be a man. Men fought to build this country. Men have kept this country together, and we need strong men to help us get back on the right track. And these weak, feckless men out here trying to hustle people for money over dead black bodies, they should be ashamed of themselves. We should stand up and say, look, it's time to unite. Let's be smart about it. Let's be reasonable about it. Let's love one another. But we need men like Martin Luther King was to stand up in the gap and lead.